summer break, so we'll reconvene back in September. But after some conversations in the WhatsApp group, as today has prompted us talking about compressors, staple gun maintenance, how do we look after them, what responsibilities do we have? So, without further ado, let's just snap straight into it. And guess who's back, everybody?
Guess who's
back. Susie's extra giddy this week because, as you know, this is the last week before holidays. So I wish you all a great summer break. Remember, we are here. Can you let Mandy in? So remember, if you do have any questions, please keep them coming in. And you can WhatsApp it to this number. Which number is it, Susie?
Oh, here we go. It's this number here.
That number there. What do we have to do when people want to join the WhatsApp group?
WhatsApp the number to say, I'm in.
The biggest WhatsApp group is what we are trying to create. I know I'm not a big fan of WhatsApp groups normally, but I have to say this is off the hook, this WhatsApp group, because all they're asking about is upholstery questions, and very supportive and very loving. So if you're not in it, you can type the number in here. For those people that are joining us live for the very first time, they're like, oh, can you let Ruth in, please? They're like, what is he pointing at? There's nothing there. During the edit, we put all the numbers and all the fancy bits and sound effects like this. So when you look at Susie, there's a sound effect like this.
What?
I don't know that. I've not chosen one, but I'm sure I will.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's so funny, isn't it?
I'm channeling mooing cows at the moment. Like, you know,
I could
Bully's
have
special
done like a
prize.
mooing, face, and then you could put the sound effect in. There you go.
I really don't know quite what I'm going to do to it. Anyway, this is supposed to be not a comedy show. This is supposed to be all about upholstery. Now, back to you again, Susie. It's like ping pong.
Why?
Do we have the first question, please?
Well, it's about staple guns and compressors.
Oh,
I thought you might want to talk about it first because you might even answer the questions.
No, go.
You want me to go straight in? Okay, straight in. How many different sizes of staples should I buy?
How many different staples should I buy?
Sizes.
Different thicknesses. Right, so while I've got a staple gun here, the one staple gun you do want to buy if you're in the UK and a UK citizen, can't speak unfortunately for the rest of the world, but the one thing you want to do is buy yourself a Series 71 staple gun, okay? The Series 71 staple gun talks about the crown of the staple. So that's the width of the staple, okay? So if you've got a Series 71, great. The reason you get lots of different series of staple guns, but Series 71 are the most common, therefore the staples are the most common and probably the most cheapest to buy. Otherwise, you're getting a bit more kind of, not specialised was the word. I'll make that one up. Niche, that's the word, but more expensive. I know it was in there somewhere. Right, so 71 staples will get you the correct size crown. Then, like, if you're just making footstools...
What's the crown for people?
The width, okay. Susie.
I know, listen. I'm just for people who didn't know.
Well, they're all listening as well. Right. Help or hindrance, still trying to work that out. Right, so you've got the right crown. Now, footstools, if you're just making footstools and you're just making footstools and a lovely, fantastic, flamboyant printed fabric, you probably only need a 10mm staple, right? That's the height. Standard upholstery length is 10mm. Okay, 1 centimetre. Now, if you're doing leather all day long or really, really, really thick fabric, you could go up to a 12mm staple. The reason in leather you tend to go up is because the thickness of leather, when you're stapling on something, you've got a staple and a piping on, you've got 2 thicknesses there plus the thickness, and if it's an outside back, you've got another thickness. That's 4 thicknesses in a 0.9 of a mil. You could be up to 4 mil, only leaving you a little bit of staple thickness to go into the wood. So with leather, you could go up. Really, really thick upholstery fabric, go up. If you're stapling the rug into the floorboards at home because it's just wandering off like we did, I used a 14 mil staple, right? It's quite a thick rug. Now, on the other side, when, and almost to the day, 29 years to the day, I've now been upholstering. Is it the 20th? What is it today? 22nd?
23rd.
23rd. Oh, it is almost to the day. This is my 29th anniversary of upholstery. And on my first day as an upholsterer, as a little 16-year-old boy, my first job was given to me was putting stapling facings. So I was given a really thin board, like a hard board, bit of 1/2 inch foam, bit of Dacron, bit of fabric. And I was given some staples. Taught how to use the gun, loaded them up, stapling. Half the morning went, thought, ran out of staples, I'll go and help myself, right? And I did help myself, and I put them in the gun, and I was holding the facing like so, and as I went to put the first staple in, well, I didn't realise that he did a different length, because that whole length went straight into my finger, because I put long ones in rather than the short 6 mil, I think they were. So I took myself off to the toilet. I was like, everything all right, Anthony? Yes, fine, thank you. Took myself off to the toilet and wept like a little boy, but left the toilet feeling manly that on my first day, after the first couple of hours, I shot myself. So if you're doing facings, you want to reduce the height of your staple down to kind of like a 6 mil. These staple guns, whether using the fabulous Senko staple gun or the arch rivals, the BEA staple gun, I personally would vote Senko all the way, each to their own. However, these have a staple parameter. They work between a 6 mil and a 16 mil. Try popping one of those in your finger, you're going to know about it. Right? 6 mil or 16 mil is the height difference. Personally, I would have one box of 6 mil for doing your facings. If you're doing facings, you don't need to just buy things because, oh, well, I want to buy things, right? 6 mil if you're doing facings. 10 mil if you're doing standard upholstery. 12 mil if you're doing very, very thick fabrics and leather work. But also, just adding on to that, I wouldn't buy cheap staples, because cheap staples are money spent in the wrong place, right? You're thinking, I'm going to use loads of staples and I'm going to just buy these cheap ones. Well, what happens if you cock it up and you need to get them staples out, right? They break. Not only do they break in the worst places, and then you don't realise it, and then you end up rubbing your hands or fabric over it, and you end up cutting yourself, right? And if you end up cutting yourself and you get it on the fabric, you're like, oh my God, I got blood on the fabric, gobbing on it, all over it to make sure you're getting that blood out. Don't do it, right? The biggest frustration people get in upholstery is the fact that they have to take staples out. If you change your mindset to every single staple's temporary, it just depends how temporary they are. Some of them are really temporary, and some of them are hopefully, after you've finished the job, got paid for it 20 years later, temporary, right? If you change your mindset to everything's temporary, then it doesn't bother you as much, right? But if you buy decent staples, and I highly recommend, not only would you cut me open and I would bleed red, like most people, but the red of Senko, right? Senko staples, a few quid more, but honestly, hardly ever break when it comes to taking them out. So don't buy your cheap tack-wise staples, because it's just a false economy, right? The other thing, I'm going to talk about this later, by buying cheap staples, you could be getting little shards or splinters of metal, because it's cheap metal, that's getting stuck in your gun, and therefore that's why you're having lots of problems with it later. But more about that later.
Can you
Susie,
just clarify
I think I've covered
what you mean by facings?
Facings. Facings are the bits that if you have a child or you're of a childish nature and you're going to draw a picture of a chair, you would draw the arms going round like so, and then you might draw a little thing inside the arm like that. That is called the facing. That's a knock-on facing. So you use a little thing called a Christmas tree or pine cones or facings clips to put in the wood, and they're barbed, which means they knock in one way and hard to retract the other way. So that's what a facing is, and they're only made out of thin wood, possibly hardboard, possibly really thin. Can you let in Wes and
Sorry,
Mary?
I'm just reading some questions or comments. In actual fact, we've got a new member who's joined today, and she's introduced herself. And she runs upholstery retreats in the Loire Valley in France.
I'm booking.
When can we come?
When can we come? When can we come?
That sounds lovely, doesn't it?
It does sound lovely. When can we come? And
Yeah,
I don't mean to come and teach. I mean to come and learn. Who was
Oh,
that, Susie? Who was it?
That's Mandy. You can see at the top there.
Oh, Mandy. Oh, Mandy.
And also an
Oh,
update.
she's even got French furniture. She is genuinely in France.
Yeah.
She has
I am
a French
indeed.
armoire
Hello.
and a French mirror. What kind of upholstery do you teach in France?
I don't teach classes. I host an upholsterer, a professional upholsterer who comes here from England.
That's
And
good stuff, wasn't it? A professional upholsterer. I am a professional upholsterer. I have sitting guilds and
What level are
MSQs. I could even go to hospitality management, I think, with a level 1 people. Anyway, wow, that sounds amazing. And where can we find out more information about said retreat?
I will put a link in the chat for everybody.
Ah, very good, very good.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
We also have an update from Nicola from last week, with the ply grip struggles.
Oh, yeah?
She bought a 14mm staple, and that's done the trick, which links to what we were just talking about.
Right, yes. But honestly, go easy with those 14mm staples. The DPR, the harder they hurt when you stick them in the finger, right? And the more the nurse has to pull them out. Right, we don't all talk about staples.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Susie?
Not at the minute.
Right. Well, let's carry on the talk of staples. We are getting a lot of new members, which is absolutely brilliant. And other members that have been in their upholstery career for, 6 months, a year or 2 years, but then feel bad to admit they don't know certain basic things, right? So, we decided, after a lot of community chat, to run over some of the basics that you might think that, I don't know what, I've not done that for a long time, or I'm certainly not doing this, or I'm not doing that, and that is looking after your tools, okay? I always thank my staple gun for the following things: putting every bit of food on my table, every holiday I've ever been on, every night out I've ever had, and every hangover thereafter, okay? That is why the staple gun is as important, because this is your number one tool and is the money maker. Without one of these, you ain't making any income. Okay, now I know all the traditionalists will go, well, hammer never breaks, tax never breaks, yeah, but again, staple guns, right? So you have to look after your staple gun. The absolute basics, right? First of all, thank you, Senko, because they kindly always support everything we do, and whenever we need it, they send us lovely things. So, straight out of the box, here is the Senko staple gun, right? Straight out, instructions. Read them carefully, folks.
Have you ever read those, Anthony?
No, I haven't. And you know I haven't, Susie. Right, here is my Senko staple gun. It's remarkably and exactly the same as one of these. I love Senko because as an apprentice, I was given one of these staple guns and it was grey, the same grey as this. And I have still exactly that staple gun after 29 years. It still doesn't miss a beat or miss a staple. So it's absolutely brilliant. I love them. BEA equally make guns, decent guns, just not quite as good as Senko, in my humble opinion. Right, so when looking after them, one thing you want to do is make sure that when you've got your staple gun, see just doing this, when it's connected, just getting your staple gun, right, and just doing this every time you staple something and just dropping it. It's just utterly disrespectful to your staple gun. Equally, never do that to your scissors either. Now, one habit I used to do, but I am now trying to turn myself out of it, is these are not hammers, right? The back of these staples guns are not hammers. So when you have a stray staple sticking out, you don't just turn around and start hitting it like this with it. Bad. Bad, bad, right? The next thing is when you've got a dusty environment, you might have one of those fabrics. I had one the other day. You look at it and you staple it, and just with the air pressure alone, it just go, and all little bits of fabric remnants are coming off. That's all going to get stuck in your gun, and you need to keep it clean. If you're in a garage and it's got dampness, right? Dampness adds to rust. Rust adds to problems. Always try and keep your gun in a really stable environment where it's not in a damp environment. It's not going to get rusty, because your compressor will go from being hot when it's running to cool at night, and that's going to leave condensation in your tank. We're going to get onto more of that later. So the do's and don'ts: always spend as much money as you possibly can on buying the right tools. I believe always eating beans on toast for a week if it requires it. Not only beans on toast very good, but I've not had them for over years. To save the money to buy the right tools. Now, one of the common questions is, do I go for a long nose gun or do I go for the standard nose gun if you're only buying one? Personally, that's all down to the job that you're doing. Don't look around at everybody else and think, yep, I need one of those because that person's using one of those. Get one of those because that person's doing something that I want to do, right? It only relies on the work you're doing, determines on what gun you want. Personally, I've never had a long nose gun. That might surprise other people. I've never had a web stretcher. How have I got through 29 years of upholstery, right? Because I don't like being that far away from my work. I like being up close and personal with it, right? I've only had a handful of occasions where I've needed a long nose gun in my 29 years. And what it is mainly when it's on the inside back of a chair and you've got arms coming out there and you can't get your staple gun in between the arms because you've got the shape of the inside back and you've got your arm and you just can't get this in, right? But then I've just used tacks and a regulator to do it. Not a problem, worked a problem around it. So if you're thinking about getting a long nose gun, can you justify it? Do you prefer just being that little bit further away from your work, right? Do you need both? I would say look and review your work you're doing. It's completely like that. End of conversation. Right. Next one. Should I have a curly airline, coil airline, or should I just go for a straight airline? Personal preference. There is no difference between each airline. I don't like the coil ones because I like to be able to put my gun down in a certain place and know that it's not ended up 2 feet behind me because of the coils retracted it, right? I don't like coil ones because I don't like it catching on the side of my table, but I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm just letting you know what experiences I've had with it, right? Staple guns, like I said, always buy the best tools you can possibly buy. So avoid buying cheap ones and thinking I'm going to get a better one later, because it's just money misspent. Can you buy a second-hand gun? Yes, you can buy a second-hand gun, but I'm in a fortunate position where I have multiple staple guns, because over the years I've kept staple guns, and you know, imagine you're working away, staple, 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 and for instance your slider, which is the bit that pushes out the staple, breaks, or you're having an issue with like one of the kind of the rings in here, so you've got a problem with the air sealant. Like, if that happens, your tool's down, and your tool's down for possibly 24 hours if you can got a local engineer buy it, or you can go and get a replacement gun. But if your tool goes down, you're not making money. So it's always worth having a secondary good backup gun just in case that happens. Equally, I have a gun where I have a nice clean gun for where I'm doing my really nice upholstery. I have a gun from camera that looks very nice and clean. And then I have a gun that I don't mind getting crap on it. Okay, ones where I'm kind of stapling things and it might involve glue or wood glue and stuff like that, so it gets crap on it. But I still maintain it equally the same. I just think I've written that one off to say, do you know what, this isn't my everyday gun. This is just when I'm assembling frames, for instance, and I'm just putting a few tacking staples in there. Right, let's talk compressors. Now, we have various different compressors here. Oh no, that's Susie.
That's me.
Right, so here is one of our, as you can see, we have 2 styles of compressor. We have the Hyundai one here, and then we have the Senko one. The Hyundai one is about an 8 litre, and this one, as you can see, is a 4 litre compressor. Now, compressors all pretty much work in the same kind of way. However, some of the common differences are, you get an oil-free compressor and you'll get a low noise compressor, okay, or a silent compressor. Now, most compressors are geared up for kind of workshop use, and they're not really ever considered to be used in a domestic environment, okay? So they didn't have to take things into consideration, like noise, like weight, like getting moved around. So what you would buy is a 24 litre, as I started out, compressor that basically was on a wheel, and you just lifted it around and took it for a walk like a dog. But it operated around 95 decibels, but it would switch itself on and then automatically switch itself off when it got to pressure. But in the first couple of instances of doing that, you would absolutely jump out your pants, because you know, if the sound of it clicking on and off. As the kind of industry progressed and people were demanding it, and we went back to Senko I don't know how many times and said, we've got students that want to operate from home, what kind of compressors have you got that we could use for it? So then compressors started going smaller in scale, which then they started again, that's Susie, having a little snooze. So then they started bringing out compressors like this. This is a great little compressor, and we have this as a backup, as a portable compressor. But if you're getting into upholstery and just working from a kitchen table, then we would recommend a compressor like this, or the Hyundai one at the back. Now, people fear compressors, but there's absolutely nothing to fear about them at all. They are always 100% safe. And for all the compressors we have ever sold, nobody has ever came back and said it's exploded and blew up my house, thankfully, right? It just doesn't happen because there's lots of different safety features on them. Now, few myths to blow. Once you plug in a compressor, turn it on, you don't have to go and recharge it with anything. You don't have to buy gas for it. You don't have to do anything in particular. You just have to turn it in. So it turns on with a normal standard plug, goes straight into the wall. Compressors don't like really getting plugged into just a domestic standard extension lead, because on startup they take an almighty draw of electricity and then it goes back into the kind of the running motor. But just on that startup point alone, it takes quite a heavy draw. So always try and, where possible, mitigate against the short plug and buy yourself a longer airline. So the blue airline at the back, that means you don't have to work in the same room as your compressor if it's a noisy one. This is a low noise one. I think it's about 52 decibels, this compressor. The Hyundai one is a very quiet compressor, right? So, you know, if you're working in a room and you have to be considerate of others, if you're working from home, you want a low noise compressor. Otherwise, the actual main compressors can be very noisy. Right, where's my camera switcher? I've lost it. What have I done with that? Right, Susie, just go and flick all the cameras off. Right, so once you've plugged in your compressor, what you want to do now is switch it onto the plug, and that's right. You don't have to do any more than anything fancy about it than that. When you come to actually turn your compressor on, most compressors are operated by the same style switch, and it'll be a box like so, and then a red button that you'll pull out like that. Now, I don't know if you can hear that compressor is starting to run. I completely lost it. So what's happening now is the air is getting pulled in and around us. I found it, we were just underneath my phone. Right, the air is getting pulled in and it's going into this, pulled into this motor, and it's getting driven and held in this air tank. What's happening now, on the dials on the top, you can see this dial here, which relates to how much air is in this tank. This is a factory set dial. You cannot make any adjustments to it at all. Right, in another minute or so, this compressor will turn off automatically, and then you'll be able to connect your airline to the compressor here. Well, once you've connected your airline, you want to make sure you're holding it very tight, because this can be, right, that clicks in there, and then to disconnect it, you just push this barrel back, like so. But be careful, hold this tight, otherwise sometimes this could whip out, and if you're stuck close to it, it can bonk you one in the face. So be very, very careful. Right, now, once you've connected your airline to this and you're using it with your tool, what will happen is this dial here will go down, and it'll get down to a certain point, a bit like a thermostat in your heating, and then it'll automatically turn on, and then it'll automatically turn off. It will do that for the whole entire day for as much air as you're using out of the airline. Now, this dial is called the regulator dial. So basically, you can adjust the pressure on your compressor. You can turn it down or you can turn it up. Now, when you're using a staple gun of this ilk, you want to operate it to about 90 psi or around there, okay? The maximum pressure of the operating pressure will always tell you on your gun in here or around here, or in the restrictions that people never read. So you always want to make sure you're operating it at the right pressure. If you ever need to adjust the pressure, you simply do it by the regulator, which is here. You have a plus and a minus, or a plus and a minus. And what you do is on some, you would pull it out and then twist it, but do it slowly, folks. Get it up to pressure and then adjust it slowly. So to turn the pressure down, you would simply turn it towards the minus, but just do it a half a turn at a time and allow the dial here to stabilize. Okay, turn it a little bit and let it stabilize. So if I turn this down now, you can start to see like it's delayed. I turn it and then it starts to settle. So then I turn it down and it like so. So I'm only making small turns at a time. Now I can turn it up by turning it to the plus side, and equally it'll start to move the dial up. Now because this has a very small air tank, what's going to happen is you get about 30 staples out of it or so, and then it'll automatically turn on. I've tested it, and normally I have my staple guns turned up to about 95 psi. But with this air tank, what I've decided is I've turned it down as low as I can possibly stand it, meaning that my staples are going in the wood fully, but not getting buried or not sticking up, because that way, if I turn it down, it will end up firing more staples before it gets back up to pressure again, okay? So always adjust your staple gun to the right pressure to the surfaces that you're working on. Now, at the end of the day, and the thing you're not doing, but every manufacturer insists you must do, is look after it. Because this has got no oil in it, we don't have to bother about it. But if you have a compressor with oil in it, you've got to ensure that you are using compressor oil. You can't just go using any oil, car oil, chip oil, whatever oil, sun cream oil, right? It's got to be compressor oil. You don't buy lots of different compressor oils. There's only pretty much one. It's nice and thin and clean. So what you would do is check the level and maintain the level of your compressor. On a Bambi one, which we have out the back, you want to look on the dial and it'll be about halfway up the dial. If you're short on oil, make sure again you're putting any compressor oil in it, but pour it in little by little, make sure it's hitting the level, and then stop pouring in and let it settle. Always let it settle. If you over oil it, it'll basically push it out, it'll smoke, or it'll burn it off, and you could be a bit of a trouble. If you basically don't have oil in your compressor full stop, it's going to metal on metal, and it's going to shorten the life quite quickly by not having any oil in it. Right, other maintenance.
We do have a few questions, sorry to interrupt you.
Can
you put the airline in before you switch the compressor
Yes.
off? Can you leave the airline in?
Yes.
I think that might be it for now. Someone asked about the airline, where's it from, and I've replied, but just in case, it is from Senko. It's a 10-meter airline.
And the reason it's blue is because compressed air in this country is symbolized by blue. Yeah, always, like if you struggle to connect your airline into your compressor, just leave it connected. But all I would say is don't wrap it around the compressor once it's plugged in.
Fixings, are they all the same? For example, can you buy an Senko airline for a BEA gun?
Yes. So we have the standard fittings that go in the back. We have a European fitting. This is a Series 19, and then the longer one, which is a Series 21. Most staple guns come with a European series, of, I think this is a 21 or a 19, can't remember which way around it is. It's the one with a bigger hole.
But if your coupling in the back of your gun looks like that, then the Senko airline will fit.
Yes.
If it looks like this one, then it won't.
It's the UK standard fitting. Most airline couplings, actually, you can buy fit this one, not that one. So opt for that one. Most of them will come as standard with this fitting.
Are you going back to staple gun maintenance?
Yes,
Okay, cool.
I am.
PTFE tape, where should it be wrapped around?
PTFE tape is good, and what that is like the plumber's tape. So basically it can seal it. Top tips when using PTFE tape: don't use too much of it. Okay, if you use too much of it, basically it's counterintuitive. As you can see on my gun, I do have a tape wrapped around it. Wrap it around as flat and even as you possibly can. Okay, and only 2 or 3 times. It's just there to reduce any possible air leak. Okay, the more you put on it, the less the thread's going to be able to do its job and not seal it, and then you're basically bunging it together with the tape, and air can still leak out of it. Okay, so yes, use it sparingly and make sure it's evenly wrapped around, but try it without first. Okay, don't just instantly opt for it. Try it without. If you've got a tiny air leak, then wrap 1 or 2 round it and then tighten it up with a 14mm spanner. Right, airlines, put that to one side. Let's continue on talking about compressors.
Me again.
That's Susie again. There she is. Everybody, she's still here. Right.
Just checking that I'm not like just scrolling on my phone or falling asleep over here.
At the end of the day, what do? Turn off your compressor. That is now completely off, and it's not going to re-inflate itself. Now, what you should be doing, due to the manufacturer's guidelines, you should be emptying your air tank full, which is full of air. You should be turning it off and then draining the air tank. All compressors have a bung or a tap underneath them where you can do this. I have a tip, okay? I don't have the cloth, so pretend this instruction manual is the cloth. If you've got a compressor, arm yourself with 2 cloths at the end of the day. 1 cloth you're going to put over the switch. The second cloth you're going to put underneath where the air outlet is. Okay? There is no point trying to get a little dish and put that underneath. Okay? So what's going to happen is we now need to drain all of the air out of here. And if you're in a garage, in the autumn, or where the times are changing, where the atmospheric pressure is changing, where it's warmer in the day but cold at night, you're going to get condensation building up here. And as the condensation builds up, the water level will increase, thus reducing the amount of air in here that you're using. So when it fills up, it could only be filling up a quarter of the air, thus turning on more regular, thus wearing the motor out more quickly. So you always need to reduce the amount of condensation in here. And because inside here is a steel tank, it becomes very rusty. Let me just turn that off. Right, so also in here is over 100 psi of pressure. So you want to basically turn the switch off, put your cloth over the top of it, okay? Then you want to just open up this tank just ever so slightly. What will happen is, if you don't do this regular, that will start to drip.
How regular is regular? Because people are panicking now. Should they be doing this every day?
We'll get to that bit. Right?
There's a lot of people didn't know about this.
And that's hence why we're doing it, right? So the rusty water. Now, if you're doing this on a carpet, you're never going to get the colour of that rusty water out. you want to do it outside or on a stone floor, or put a rag underneath it, right? If you put a little bowl of water to catch it underneath it, when the water starts to come out, it's catching the water. But then all of a sudden, it's blowing the water everywhere. So all you've successfully done is just spill that water absolutely everywhere, like a fine mist of rusting and nastiness, right? So as you can see, nothing's coming out of mine at all because I'm good and I look after mine all the time. Right, and that's it, empty. As you can see that little tiny last bit there? Right, that's just a little bit of rustiness. And that'll be over my drum footstool in half an hour when I come to upholstery. Right.
Practice what you preach.
I know, practice what you preach. That's all right. Hard carpet table gets everything done. Right. So now, in the morning, you're coming in. And if this is a big compressor, over 24 litres, that'll take a lot longer than that. And you want to go home for the night. So you put a cloth underneath here. Now, if you don't put a cloth here and you don't put a cloth here, what happens is, in the morning, you're like, yay, let me crack on with that horrible chair I was stripping yesterday. I'm going to get my tools out. You turn this on. Right, when you turn this on, if this is not a low noise compressor, all that's happened is, this is getting sucked in, the air's getting sucked in, it's getting driven into the air tank here, but it's just escaping underneath, right? So, to avoid that ever happening, if you put a cloth underneath to catch your rusty water, and if you put a cloth on the top, that cloth on the top signals that actually I've got to tighten this, thus never being able to turn it on without ever tightening that. Now, other things you should never do to a compressor. When it's running, you should never turn it off. Okay? Because that has this factory setting on it that'll only ever turn off when it gets to a certain pressure. And if you're turning it off prior to it getting up to pressure, you're affecting I can't cope, somebody keeps turning me off before I get up to pressure. It's not going to like it, is it? Right? So, always leave it to get onto pressure. Always turn it off at night. Never ever leave your compressor turned on with an airline plugged into it. We used to have a massive, it was called a screw compressor. It basically could make more air than you could ever physically take out of it. It was that powerful. One night, we went home and then the staff were there and the staff left, and then I walked in the morning and I could smell the smell of burning oil. But not only that, air absolutely pissing out of an airline. Because it was really, really hot, the airline softens, okay? In a cold winter's day, you'll notice your airline's a lot stiffer than in the summer when they're a lot softer. And because we used to build our own airlines, we used to have Jubilee clips on them. And the airline got so soft, it basically softened where the clip was, it popped off. And because nobody had turned that compressor off at night, it was just pissing all night. Not only was it a complete waste of electricity, but it could severely have damaged the compressor. Because if it's constantly running, it will only run for about half an hour, a normal compressor, before it overheats. And then in the top, where you've got all the rubber gaskets in the motor, will basically start to perish under that heat. And then the air will escape that way. And for the price of the compressor, for the price of actually having it fixed, you're unfortunately on the way to buying a new compressor. It doesn't take long to look after them. It doesn't take long at all. So start doing it. How often should I be emptying my compressor? Minimum once a week. Okay? Do it once a week. Get into a habit of, do you know what? Decompress on a Friday. I'm done. I'm off to enjoy my weekend. My weekend starts now, right? And that's it. Your compressor's empty and that's it. Or whatever job you dislike the most, just let it out with the air of your compressor, right? So that's your compressor's done. But remember, Monday morning, folks, yeah, where you're still rubbing the sleep out your eyes, remember to always turn your tap closed, otherwise your compressor will run and run and run. Right, staple guns. Whether they're brand new or a few years old, you still have to look after them. Look after them, they will look after you. With a brand new gun straight out of the box, what you should be doing is opening it. They normally will be factory oiled, okay? But in your compressor, I have one of these, which is just a little pipette, okay? Now, treat this like hot chili oil, okay? More hotter than you can bear. And what you're going to do once a month, okay? What you're going to do is lift your staple gun up, switch to this camera, take your hot chili oil like so, and all you're going to do is fire down in where your slider comes out. You're just going to drop 2 or 3 little pipettes of oil, and that oil is working as a lubrication, because remember, every time you press a staple, that gun slider is sliding back and forward. Let me just demonstrate such things. Right, there, you can't quite see my slider, it says, you can still, right, so every time that's sliding, my finger is nowhere near that, by the way, right, you want to keep that lubricated, so drop 2 or 3 drops of compressor oil or staple gun oil into there like so. Then also drop 2 or 3 down the airline there, and that will trickle into where the piston is. Basically, there's a bit back and forward that slides in here. It's got rubber seals to trap all the air in it. Very, very simple. Then you want to store your gun like so. You want to get into the habit of storing your guns like so, because that oil is then going to drip into here. That oil is going to drip into there and keep it lubricated. Now, after you've oiled your gun, what you want to do is take your gun, take your airline, connect it. Double check there are no staples in your gun. Physically check, and then fire your gun repeatedly. Right? I used to do it like this. Because what's going to happen is that quick firing is going to continue to help lubricate all of the gun. Now, what also is going to happen is lots of dirty oil is going to get pushed to the front of your gun here and possibly out of where the exhaust is. Some people's guns will have the exhaust here. Some people's guns will have the exhaust on the back. So you want to get a nice clean cloth. Clean all around here. Make sure you clean all around here and get rid of all of that oil, right? And then connect it back up, fire it again. Then get your clean cloth again and double check that you've got rid of all that oil, because what you don't want to do is put your staples in, start firing your staples, and then you'll be like, I'm sure I'm using silver staples, but all of mine look black. That's because they came into contact with the oil, and that's why they look black, and you can have splatters of oil everywhere. So make sure you give it a good clean. Now, other issues you can have, as if you're repeatedly stapling in the same spot, your staples can fracture and leave spurs in the inside. And sometimes your tongue or your slider of your staple gun can get jammed, right? If that's the problem, you've got to do the following thing. Be careful. What you want is a regulator. What you want is a hammer. Okay? And then what you want to do is get your staple gun. I've tried to jam my slider up today, but no matter how many times I repeatedly stapled in the same place, I couldn't get it to jam. But if your slider ever does jam, you want to get your regulator in the back between the nose here and between the slider there. You can just jam this in, right? And then what you want to do, on the top of your regulator, gently tap this. And I mean gently tap it. And what will happen is that'll start to separate the slider from the nose of the gun, and then very quickly you want to get the debris and shake it out, because you don't want that little bit of staple that stopped your slider retracting going into the gun, right? So find it, tap it out, and then oil it. If you don't have any oil, you can simply spray in silicone, and that'll do the job temporarily, but you really do want oil on it. So oil is your friend, but also can be your enemy if you're not cleaning it and you go back to instantly using your stapler gun. So don't use it as hammers, keep it clean, regularly oil it kind of once a month. Look after your staple compressor, make sure your pressure is always maintained. See if you can reduce it. If your staples are not going in properly, you might need to increase it. Remember, to the plus to increase it, minus to decrease it. Can't adjust the pressure that's inside all factory settings. Just be careful and make sure your compressor is left in a ventilated area, because if it's not getting air to it, then it's working harder to be able to inflate the tank itself. And make sure that it's staying away from things, because the motor itself gets really, really, really hot. Any questions?
What is the quietest compressor?
To be honest, our Hyundai compressor,
It's bang for your buck as well, isn't it, on that one?
This Hyundai compressor is possibly one of the easiest compressors to look after. Right?
Do you want me to help bring that over?
Yeah, bring it over. Let me move this one. Slide this one in. We started off selling the Senko one to help basically with people being able to find a solution for working at home. And then we came across this Hyundai compressor. So it's a slightly bigger air tank than the Senko one. The only thing it doesn't have, which is not a problem because it's sufficient for our staple guns, is it doesn't have a regulator on it. So you can't turn it down should you wish to, but if you're doing upholstery, I can't imagine you would ever need to turn it down. It's a very silent compressor. It's a very, very quiet compressor, and it's cheaper than the Senko one. How much is this compressor, Susie?
I think it's about 120-ish.
I would say 120 quid for a compressor is pretty good. How much do we sell these staple guns for?
The Pro, 195.
So 195 quid for that compressor, 120, and then the airline. You're operational for?
I think it's 350 all told.
350
Through
all
us.
told.
Through us.
Surely that doesn't make sense. The compressor and the gun.
195, 1, 2, 3, yeah, and the airline.
And the airline.
Yeah, 350 altogether.
350 quid and you're out upholstered. Bargain. Now those compressors, I had my very first compressor for years and years and years because I looked after it, and you have to look after it. The other thing I would just tell you now, the other thing I do like, I can't speak for Senko guns, but the one, BA guns, The reason why I do really like a Senko gun is because the narrowness of the nose. On the cheaper guns, sometimes they become square, so it's the width of this part, right? But what this is the width of the actual where the crown of the staple fits through. It's a lot narrower. So if you're trying to do something and you're trying to be precise about it, having that narrower nose on your gun is really helpful. What I know other people do if they have one of the square ones, they actually mark on the gun where the staple comes out to be able to, you know, when you're ply gripping and you've got to try and be precise to where the holes are, this is easy, okay? But when you've got a square one, if you just mark on where the staples are coming out, sometimes it helps to be more precise.
Can you add more than one hose to that compressor?
Yes, you could, but with a compressor of this size, you can't really have two people working off it because they're just draining it too quickly. I would say, you know, if you're looking to run more than one airline off a tank, I would say realistically you don't want to go below 50 litres. Otherwise you're draining that airline out. Even at 24 litres, you're then at 12 litres each pretty much. You're not draining the full 24 litres of air out. You're draining probably 2/3 of that out. So the more people are using staple guns, the more number of staple guns you're using, the more air you're taking from it, the quicker the compressor's going to turn out, the more noise, the more heat, the more it's running is going to affect the longevity of the compressor.
I suppose it depends how quickly they're working, doesn't it? If they're kind of...
But you can. I've seen people thought, do you know what? I see everybody else teaching upholstery. That looks dead easy. I'm going to avoid... I'm going to avoid, you know, making furniture myself. I'm going to just seem to be taking the easy route of doing teaching. I'm going to do modern upholstery, therefore it's even easier because all we need is staple guns. So then what we do is they get half a dozen compressors for each student. I'm like, why have they all got a compressor each? They clearly don't understand anything when it comes to compressors. You can get off one of these, you can get what's called a Y shape. So basically it's a splitter. It goes into one, splits into two. You can get them that splits into 3 or 4. We used to personally build all our own airlines and everything. I think it's much better if you can build them yourself. It's much cheaper, and you know it works better in your workshop. So you don't need a compressor per person. You just need to ensure you get a big enough compressor that it can handle what it is. Also, compressors will run any equivalent of power tools that you have. So they can run drills, they can run sanders, they can run sprayers, you name it, but it's the CFM you need to look at. They need to look at how much air that tool is taking for using it with a correct size compressor. Susie?
No, I think I was just waiting to get past it.
Okay, go on, you can get past it. It's not a traffic light system.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Let me just have a quick check. Does it? No, that's it at the minute.
Wes says he uses a 225 litre compressor. That's it. I mean, as a professional, you can be rapid firing those staples, and what you don't want to do is end up losing pressure on such a small compressor that you're waiting every time for it to reinflate. Anything else, Susie?
I'm just checking my list. No, I think we've answered everything.
Well, that's it then, folks. We are done for the summer. We are going to be back in September with community. The community chat doesn't finish. So head over to our WhatsApp group. Susie,
Here we go.
there it is.
There it is.
So
We'll be back
thank
on
you.
the 10th of September.
Back on the 10th of September. Thank you very much to everybody that's taken part in community. We'll be back in September for more